Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I'm Jay, also known as... In the year 610, in a cave just north of Medina, the great Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, started having his first revelations from Allah through the angel Gabriel, right? And at that time, the great Prophet was 40 years old, which is what we would consider today, in today's world, to be midlife, right? 40 years old would be midlife. And had me starting to think, well, initially, we know the great prophet, he didn't start to share any of these revelations and things like that for quite some time, until he worked his way up to the point of where he did start to share his revelations with his wife, and then started spreading the word throughout, I guess, his communities. Started gaining followers and believers, which were, as we know through the stories are told, some of the foundations, the beginning works of the Quran as we know it, right? And having his following and spreading the word, I should say, bringing Islam to what we know now is, according to studies, the second largest religion in the world. Hopefully one day the biggest religion in the world. Because I find this religion and this community of Islam to be one of the greatest experiences, the greatest things that's ever happened to me personally. And thinking at 40 years old, when the great prophet started having these revelations from Allah, how freaked out must he have been, right? I mean, I assume he had to be super scared, not to mention having his mind completely blown and wondering, am I going insane? What is going on? How am I gonna tell people this? They're gonna think I'm crazy. I think back then maybe they would have, stoned somebody like that. I'm just guessing. And I assume he probably had to deal with a lot of his own personal, emotions and things like that, going through those revelations. And I wonder too, how once he accepted it and understood it and let his heart open up, how beautiful that must have been for the great prophet. Because I know from my own personal experience, submitting my will to Allah and being called to the one true religion is, the word beautiful is just the tip of the iceberg as far as me being able to describe the feelings of peace and joy and love that I have since submitting my will to Allah. The day we recited my Shahada was one of the greatest moments of my life. As much as, my days, all these years of being with Mrs. Muslim and having our children and being in a loving, wonderful marriage and having two great human beings for children, reciting my Shahada and just letting go and giving myself completely to Allah, greatest day of my life. So, anyway, so with the great prophet dealing with all these thoughts and emotions, and he once he opened his heart, it had to be absolutely beautiful. Had to be. And it makes me stop and think about the great prophet prior to the revelations from Allah. How often did the great prophet ponder life? I wonder how often did the great prophet, lay in bed at night wondering, maybe looking at the stars or just contemplating life, thinking, what is this all about? What is this here for? How did this get here? How was this created? Why was it created? I would assume many of the same questions that all of us have had, right? I think anybody that has somewhat of a human brain and thought process and a heart should question and wonder why and how everything is the way it is. And wondering, did the prophet, did he really contemplate those things on a regular basis? So with my personal experience, prior to, again, with the great prophet being 40 years old, having these revelations, considered midlife, that's kind of freaky. It's kind of scary. Earlier this year, I was 48 years old. In March, when I started, if you watch our earlier videos, my personal calling to Islam started with me laying in bed one evening back in March of this year. And out of nowhere, just lying in bed, preparing to try to fall asleep, I started having these thoughts of Islam and Muhammad and Allah, and just quickly running through my brain thinking of Muhammad. Who really was Muhammad within Islam, and Allah, and thinking why do people address him as Allah? And from that night forward, I was just consumed by wanting to know the answers to these things for absolutely no reason whatsoever. I had not seen any television footage recently or documentaries or anything concerning or containing information related to Islam, and it just came to me. And for the people that think I'm crazy or don't believe me, that's something you have to deal with, not me. I'm sorry. And they were feeling my own personal feelings. I was a little freaked out, thinking to myself, my initial thoughts were, okay, I'm 48 years old. Why is this happening to me now? To reiterate some of the backstory, you all know I've been very sick, dealing with this mystery illness for several years. And at the time, back in March, I was sick then, sick now. Had been sick several years, but mentally, back in March, I wasn't in a particularly dark place mentally. Nothing that I can think of to relate to that would bring me to reaching out for something beyond modern medicine and things of this world that we know. It just happened. It just happened. And now I fully believe it happened through the will of Allah. It happened because it was supposed to happen. No other explanation needed. No reason to even think about it any or dive deeper into it, if you will. No reason whatsoever. It was meant to happen. That was the will of Allah. Praise be to Allah. Absolutely. All praise and glory be to Allah. My heart and my heart is so filled with joy in knowing that I have submitted myself and my will to Allah. The word beautiful is just the tip of the iceberg. So it made my personal experience, knowing that the great prophet at 40 started having revelations and questions, I did too, right? Through most of my adult life, I did always feel as if, more so than anything, how do I say, I did just kind of believe things just happened, and I just wasn't too concerned about how or why things happened or how or why the universe was created, so to speak. I thought about it a lot in my adult life. I have contemplated it quite a bit. And then I got to a point to where I just kind of became complacent, thinking, it is what it is. We live our life and we die. That's it. End of story. Unfortunately, as much as I think most of us would like to know what the meaning of life is, and perhaps when we die, we are revealed the meaning of life. At that point, I just gave up on it. I thought, we're dead, that's it, nothing more, it's all good. But I had also thought for many years, though, that things didn't just appear out of nowhere, right? The universe, the planet we live on, human beings, every creature, plant life, animal on this planet, the way animals behave and live and reproduce, this just couldn't have been a fluke, right? I did think that for many years, but I didn't feel like I had the right information, or nothing really. I didn't have anything to really nail it to, right? To give it a foundation. I had no real foundation to attach all of this to. So I just kind of just left it as is. Thinking about all that, and wondering, and again, I've contemplated many nights, many days, looking up at the stars and just thinking about, there has to be more, there has to be more, there has to be. And through the grace and glory of Allah, I had my calling back in March. And I'm not afraid, I wasn't afraid to speak to anybody about it. Is Mr. Muslim a prophet? I don't believe I'm a prophet. No, not at all. I just think it's funny that the way people address certain things. And all the years that I have contemplated many times, just thinking about life in general, you know, like I think a lot of people looking up at the heavens at night and just wondering whether you believe or you don't believe, you at least have to acknowledge that there was something greater than yourself and all of this around us. Something created all of this, and you know that used to boggle my mind for many years. Again, I used to be just fairly complacent about it because I had nothing, no foundation, no groundwork laid for me to help stack my questions on top of to make sense out of them. That's where Islam comes in, the one true religion, and I believe that with all of my heart. Now it all makes sense. It all makes sense. Would I love to have very deep, true, endearing revelations from Allah? Absolutely. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't love to have communications directly from the Creator? Absolutely. You know, that would be something I couldn't even try to describe. I don't think anybody could. But thinking about those things, and at my similar experience, I'll say at middle age, being called to Islam, that brings up different types of questions for myself, and I stop and think, oh, why didn't this happen earlier in my life? Why couldn't this have happened many years ago, or something along those lines? And then I stop myself and I put myself in check, because it wasn't meant to happen yet. It wasn't meant to happen then, as I'm speaking to you right now. And this is happening for a reason. I'm here speaking about these things for a reason. Many of you brothers and sisters say that our story is an inspiration, and we've helped you kind of rekindle some of your own thoughts and beliefs and things like that. That's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I thank you for those endearing words. I thank you. I am by no means a Muslim scholar. Far from it. Far from it. Hasn't even been a year that I have submitted my will to Allah and following Islam. But it is something I'm not going to give up. Absolutely not. No one's going to push me away from this, no matter how much negativity and hate in the comments and things on these videos. Go ahead. Keep it coming. Mr. Muslim's not going anywhere. I am here for one reason only. It's because Allah wants me to be here. And I'm hoping I can do the right things. I hope I am following the right path, and I pray to Allah every day that I am following the path that Allah wants me to be on. If I can inspire you, if I can help make your day a little easier, bring a smile to your face, that you might be able to pass that smile on to another, to bring joy to another person, just by saying hello, perfect. I feel like I'm doing the right thing. And I hope you brothers and sisters agree. I've mentioned before, I don't speak a whole lot on Islam as far as the teachings and things yet. As I read and learn and believe and understand and become fluent with things, I will share more things. I started reading passages out of the Quran on video. I'm going to do more of that. I like doing that. As we read and share together, I think that can just do nothing but make all of us better human beings. And not just in terms of worshiping Allah and being Muslims, but just in terms of us being better people throughout the course of each day. And that's the way I'm looking at it. I'm taking all of this one day at a time. I pray that Allah grant me many years of life left, that I can change and help and affect other people throughout the rest of my life. And again, even for you brothers and sisters, it just might be as simple as a hello. How are you today? Just a simple greeting. It's a great day to be alive. Things like that, believe it or not, they do help and they make a difference. So taking this one day at a time, I'm glad that you brothers and sisters are here with us, taking these steps one day at a time. Many viewers, many brothers and sisters have mentioned, as new reverts, we are like newborn babies, right? all of our past sins have been forgiven through Allah, and we are fresh and clean and this and that, and that's great. But I've also had my, I guess my share, my form of envy, I'll call it envy, thinking, but many of you brothers and sisters that were born into Muslim families, you've had many years of being able to worship and praise Allah and learn the teachings and learn Arabic and how to pronounce things properly, like subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, I think I'm saying it right. And so, I've mentioned this before, I don't want to speak about too many things that I'm not fully, absolutely knowledgeable about and comfortable with. And I feel that I know in my own heart, if I understand this passage or these specific words in Arabic, then I'm going to start introducing them into my own vocabulary. But one day at a time, everybody, one day at a time. For the brothers and sisters out there that have been Muslims your entire life, we're born into Muslim families. Things at this point, take it one day at a time. I believe that Allah grants us life one day at a time. If that is His will, if that is the will of Allah, let's take it one day at a time. One day at a time is all we need to be together, to share, and to make a difference. With that being said, we'll kind of backpedal a little bit. The reason of this video was just thinking about the great Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that at 40 years old started having his revelations and how it affected his life and changed it. Myself at 48 having my own, and I'm comfortable with calling them revelations. I'm not saying I was directly spoken to from Allah or seen some sort of entity, but I believe Allah had called to me. Absolutely, no way around it. And how the different thoughts and feelings and emotions come to you when something like that happens, and how to deal with all those, and how crazy it can be, but how beautiful it can be. And yeah, that's basically what this video was about. I feel like I've rambled on too long, maybe kind of gotten off track. I apologize, but those two things, talking about my experience at 48 and how beautiful it is, and for those of you, and this was based on comments some brothers and sisters leave about, how we inspire them and things, and maybe they felt that they've kind of become somewhat complacent in their own practices, Islamic practices and ideals, and it helps get them back on track. That's awesome. That is so awesome, because if I'm helping you, you're helping me. We're helping each other. And again, I feel that I'm here and you're here and we're here together through the will of Allah. And I'm always definitely in that comment section down there, minus all the negativity, right? Negativity, gonna go away, not gonna address it. But the positivity, please, if I'm open to any information, right? If I pronounce something wrong, or if I seem to have a misconception about a certain passage or something, for especially the lifelong Muslims, please, I welcome it. One day at a time. We love each and every one of you. Thank you for all of your support, as always. For those of you that have helped financially, through kind words, through your prayers, remember, one day at a time. Allah has us here for a reason, and all we can do is follow our hearts, that our hearts are guided through Allah. That being said, we love you, and Jazakallah khair.